Lawsuits. We all love lawsuits. I'm going to talk about sports card related lawsuits that are either active or were settled or closed recently that entail a couple of big grading companies, PSA and Beckett, also CGC, because I think it's important. We all say, like, I'm so mad, I'm going to sue eBay. I'm so pissed off, I'm going to sue, PSA or Beckett. Well, some people actually have. And I'm going to tell you what happened. And it's over some things that all of us have done, and maybe on a smaller scale, but let's dive into it. All right, so the first one we've got here is the Star 101 card. Very nice card. This is involving PSA and eBay, and a high-end card collector. His name's Daniel Grand. He filed a lawsuit in 2025 against PSA and eBay about this card. He bought this card for 53 grand on eBay, and he alleged that eBay's authenticity guarantee with PSA as the authenticating partner. If you guys didn't know that, they ship it to California and PSA is the authenticator for eBay, period. Okay. It failed to catch clear discrepancies in the card. He noticed a blemish and on, some other things. This actually is a very cautionary tale. I want to stop. If you are a noob, don't buy things on eBay where the card is not graded. I had a Wilt Chamberlain rookie. It was on eBay. The listing was photoshopped. It looked like it could cross to like a 5. I got it. It was creased in half. eBay missed it, just like this card. I ended up having to do a chargeback. I was so pissed off. That is another outcome you have in your control. So it sounds like that's what happened here, according to this case. And basically what happened is the guy said, like, hey, it didn't match. And so he sued them for breach of contract and fraud, arguing that PSA and eBay's oversight, or lack thereof, caused him significant financial harm by delaying any remedy while his funds were tied up. That's the funny thing about sports cards. Sometimes things like this 101 pop is a pump. Like somebody like Jeff Wilson might talk about 101 and it pops real quick, the same way Jim Cramer talks about stocks. And if you're tied up, if PSA possesses that item, or if you just don't have the item on hand, you could lose value while this direction is going on. So the case was actually settled in October of 2025, very recently. Grand received a full refund plus $17,000 in additional compensation, which totaled about 70 grand. I imagine the lawyer putting this letter together and all that stuff probably cost them like 10 grand, give or take. So, he's probably not thrilled. Nobody's thrilled with this outcome, really, because it's a nice card. But I'm going to end all of these with implications. So this is a highly publicized case. You can Google it. It's very easy to find. It's kind of the first one to raise concerns about the reliability of third-party authentication programs in the hobby. And it applied pressure to both the marketplace and graders to tighten the verification process to keep trust. They have failed on a lot of things. One more time, I'm going to air this. Hopefully I got the card right. This card in a PSA slab is a $3,000 card. I sold this on eBay for $1,000 because because PSA was inconclusive on this card before, and he bought it, super happy. I'm going to sell it to him directly, by the way, so it doesn't matter. But I sent this to their authentication program, and they deemed it counterfeit, which is hilarious. So the authentication program does not allow for aftermarket autographs to be assessed. Okay, this was signed after the fact. Pack pulled, different story. This was signed after the fact. They're not allowed to assess it. So they think this $10 card, which I would probably bet my soul and my children that this has never been counterfeited. I don't know, maybe somebody made a fake one somewhere, so I'll take that back. But how likely is it somebody's faking $10 Ron Williams cards to what end? Forging the autograph, absolutely. But that's not what the program's for, and they kicked it, and I'm not allowed to sell it, which is unbelievable. I got a workaround, though. Let's say you want to sell this Bill Russell rookie card, and you don't want it to go through the authentication program. You stick, this Alvin Robertson $100 1986 Fleer card, and you call it a lot. Lots don't go through the authentication program, so that's a way around it. But this is interesting. It's the first shots fired really publicly against PSA and eBay and the authentication program, and I'm glad it was settled, which is interesting. All right, next one is Beckett. We've got a Steph Curry gold refractor. Man, I do wonder where that superfractor is. If you guys don't know, this card right here is quite valuable. But if the superfractor ever turns up, that could be like a $5 million card. And I've heard rumors that Topps actually burned some of these cards and threw them in landfills. I don't think that card exists. I think it's been incinerated into the sky, which is kind of sad. But anyway, this card exists, and Beckett was actually sued by Alt, which is another auction platform. It's a marketplace over this card. And Beckett had graded this card, but later it was deemed trimmed upon re-examination. So Alt purchased the Curry card for about 168 grand in 2020. They relied on this high grade to obviously signify that there was some value here. But when Alt cracked the slab to cross grade with PSA, again, PSA, all highways go to PSA with these. When they cross graded it with PSA to get a higher market value, which everybody tries to do, and a lot of people fail, that's like, if you're a noob, by the way, just don't do that. You're going to think you're a genius, like going like after BGS 9s, trying to get them to 10s. It works sometimes with Jordans, but don't play that game. So PSA refused to grade it. They flagged the card as authentic and altered due to it being short, evidence of trimming. This is another thing I'm sorry I keep interrupting my own self here, but I want to see PSA, if they deem a card minimum size, I want to see photographic evidence. I imagine it was applied here because of the lawsuit, but I want all of us, if we include the old labels, like I'm going to do in this experiment here with 86 Fleer, and they don't think it meets specs, I want to see a photo proving it doesn't meet specs, but I digress. So they refused to grade it, evidence of trimming. Beckett's own graders then quickly confirmed PSA's assessment upon the card's return. They actually agreed. So Beckett had originally slabbed this thing, but they agreed that it was trimmed, and despite having it originally encapsulated as unaltered. So that sucks. And so Alt was mad, Beckett's mad, PSA is just like the arbiter. They're the ones that kind of set this off. So this was filed in December 22. Alt accused Beckett of negligent misrepresentation and potentially fraud, arguing BGS's initial grade was wrong and cost Alt financially since the trim's card value was lower. Beckett moved to dismiss in this particular case, contending that it was a terms of service disclaim liability for grading errors. So they could say like, hey, we're going to make errors. And they think that covers themselves, but you can sue anybody for anything. So, they were noting the card was graded years before Alt even existed, which is a fair point. It didn't even exist as a company. All these new companies, it's so funny, especially Arena Club, but I won't go down that road. So the case raised the issue of greater liability, for mistakenly certifying altered cards. The status right now, after a big pretrial thing and wrangling through 24, the parties reached a confidential settlement. So we don't know what that is. It was actually just settled in September 2025. Terms are not disclosed, so that ends the court fight. What are the implications? This case, it should send ripples through the hobby. I mean, it signals that grading firms can actually be held accountable for errors, especially in an era of rampant card trimming. And card trimming happens a lot on older cards. It happens with Jordans all the time. Jordan 86 Fleer, the Kareem sticker 86 Fleer is a sleeper. People trim that one all the time. Careful with those on eBay, please, everybody. So this kind of emphasizes the need for graders to, improve detection methods and possibly be more transparent about guarantees and limitations. I think, they may be extra careful now on size requirements. All the more reason to take a photograph, PSA. Take a photograph of the card and prove it. All right, we got another one from 2025. This involves Beckett and a fake memorabilia ring. It's a trademark counterfeiting case. March 2025, Beckett filed a federal lawsuit against Wendell Gideon Rogers and Lisa Skolnick, two Texas residents, accusing them of running a large-scale fake sports memorabilia ring. The defendants were alleged to forge athlete autographs on items and then affix counterfeit authentication stickers from Beckett, PSA, JSA, and Fanatics on them to make them look good. I actually did a live. Steve Grad is a good friend of mine. You probably know him from Pawn Stars. He is like the head dude at Beckett. He explained to me, this is a tip for you guys if you're ever at a card show. Okay, those Beckett, I don't know if this applies to Fanatics and PSA, but the Beckett certification stickers that are on like a jersey or a photo or something like that, usually like a piece of memorabilia, the fake ones actually smudge. So ask permission of the person selling the item. I mean, if you're going to spend that kind of money on it, they probably will say yes. Just say, hey, can I check out this, sir? Is it okay if I run my thumb across it real quick? I want to see if it may be counterfeit. Steve Grad showed me very clearly that they do smudge the fake ones. So that's a great way to tell. Anyway, so they're doing this. They're using an auto pen machine. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but Chevy Chase does one just for fans that send stuff in. He's got an auto pen that signs his name. It's like they're getting better. They can actually mimic signatures. John Travolta uses one. You can tell I'm an autograph guy. So they were doing that to replicate signatures. So they were arrested and charged under state law with trademark counterfeiting, which is a felony. That's a federal, what do they call that? Federal. I won't go there, but it's a federal felony. So Beckett had some civil claims as well because they defamed Beckett's brand by selling forged items with the Beckett authentication, and they engaged in unfair competition by profiting off of fraudulent collectibles without the overhead and integrity cost of the legitimate authenticators. And I agree with this, man. Just send them away. Put them in prison. Like, this is disgusting behavior. So Beckett was seeking damages and permanent injunction to stop the selling. So the case right now is ongoing in the Eastern District Court of Texas. You can look it up online. A scheduling order has set a jury trial for July 2026. So I'm actually going to follow this one closely. I'm going to report back on this one because all jury trials, that's public information. And if you're in Texas, you have quick access to that. Could be very interesting, especially if you can attend publicly, which sometimes is okay. So it's still pre-trial discovery and motions. The implication is notable for showcasing that authentication companies need to protect their reputation and their trademarks and have better anti-counterfeit technology because fake authentication is a serious problem. There's another issue this summer. I did a live for 20 minutes on my Instagram with Steve Grad about $200 million authentication ring where basically the guy killed himself, and before he did, in his suicide note, he's like, it's all fake, everybody's faking stuff, and it was just really crazy. Made people question a lot of things. So that's a pretty serious one as well. One more, this is actually my favorite because it's very recent. It's CGC and holder tampering. So it's like fraudulent reslabbing. All right, in late 2023, CGC discovered there was a sophisticated fraud with their graded comic books. The scheme was that individuals would tamper with CGC sealed holders. They'd carefully open them, remove the high-grade comic, and swap a lower grade. This happens in sports cards, too. I'm going to tell you a few things to watch out for, actually. I'll tell you now before I forget. So, the PSA slabs, especially the new ones, you can see there's a little PSA etched here. That's very difficult to fake. You could also shine a black light or a UV light through this label up here to make sure that a new label isn't over an old label. That's another way to do it. Always check the thing for tiny pinholes. If there's tiny pinholes anywhere, that's all you need to crack the sonic seal carefully. So that's one thing. But anyway, this is happening with comics. So they'd sell these comics, make a ton of money. There were 350 comics that were affected by the scam. And, that took trust away. So they filed a lawsuit early 2024 against the perpetrator who has not been named. In February 2024, they got an injunction from the court preventing them from dealing with CGC any further, which is wild that they have to do that. It's like, were they able to continue doing this until they got the injunction? How long did the injunction take? It looks like it took a few months. That's wild. Meanwhile, CGC went public with the issue, which is good. It's the first thing they should do. Warn everybody. Tell us what's going on. Show us the cert numbers and throw it out there to all the comics in the wild. CGC also took that as initiative to strengthen their holder technology, which now has a much stronger seal and prevents incidents. So it's almost like the hacker and the bank, right? They all get better and better and better over time. You almost need the hacker. You almost need them to make you better, right? It's crazy. So they did that, and the status right now is the legal case is ongoing. The defendants are identified, but it's not public. It's working through the courts. It's an ongoing investigation. Law enforcement is diving a little bit deeper, but this is a wake-up call that Encapsulated graded items are not 100% safe from manipulation. The new PSA slabs are pretty good. They're very bendy, but this cost me $6 on Amazon. I can get them open pretty easy. Especially, I can also do it with a bottle opener. Now, I do it not for nefarious reasons. For example, Alvin Robertson has a signing coming up, and so I will crack this out. I'll save the label. It gets signed, goes back to PSA. That's why I do it. And I like to do it as cleanly as possible. Sometimes it's scary. This is only a $100 card, so it's not that bad. But it tells us it's like nobody's perfect. The cases aren't perfect. So my final word on all of this, the industry is changing. It's an old industry going back to the 50s or even T206s if you think about it. But it really is a new industry for the last 5 years. Significant changes in 2020, technology, companies, and a lot of money. There's a lot of money in this space. It's $10-20 billion chunk of the economy. If somebody can make $100,000 a month doing fake things, counterfeit things, they're going to do it. They're going to try. And so the grading companies need to get better. And I encourage all of us, we should all be watchdogs at the local shows. If you see something that's not right, say something. That used to be a New York subway thing, right? Like if you see something, say something, or maybe it was Boston. I don't remember. But I think that's a good policy. If you see some shenanigans online, I call it out all the time on Instagram. If you see them anywhere in a card group or even a friend, just be like, dude, don't do that. Like, let's be ethical here. So help us all be watchdogs, and maybe we can prevent some of these. But I think it's good. We can look at these cases, and they send waves to the hobby. And sometimes they make things better, and sometimes they make things worse. Thanks, everyone.